Hey everyone, it's Ornlu, and although the AOM Retold beta is now over, so I can't really give you any more gameplay footage in the background, a lot of people have compiled the list of changes. There's a big multiplayer changelog that has been, I guess, implemented into the game. It's actually pretty different in a lot of ways compared to the old AOM I used to play. And I thought it would be useful just to go through some of these changes and give my thoughts on them. I am by no means an AOM super pro, but I have played the game at least a decent amount back in the day. And yeah, like I said, there is a lot of changes. This is just from the wiki, guys, so this might not be 100% accurate. And of course, I'll link it down in the description for everyone who wants to read it themselves. There are a lot of changes, so I'm gonna skim over a few of them. Anyway, it is worth noting that in the beta that we were able to play, we could only play as the original three AOM civs, so Greeks, Norse, and Egyptians. So Atlanteans were not available, so I'm not 100% sure about these changes. But yeah, let's just go through some of these. So the first thing is you'll notice is that, well, two things. The favor cap was removed. Zeus used to have 200, I think, and then it was 100 for every other faction. That is now removed, so you can actually play more with myth units longer in the late game, because favor, whatever race you were, favor generates pretty slowly. You either need a lot of ills on it as Greeks, you need to have all the monuments as Egyptians, or you need to be constantly fighting as the Norse. So you can at least more gradually build it over time, so you can make myth units later on in the game. Also, a lot of myth unit buffs. The population cap has been removed, however, your population was never really like, oh, here's your straight, 300 pop limit. What it used to be is that you could build 10 houses, each of which would give 10 pop. Your settlements, I think, gave you 20 pop. And then you have all these settlements scattered around the map that you have to control to gain additional pop space, making map control really important in AOM. Now you can actually build more houses, which we'll get to in a minute. But also, you can sort of build these, I forget what they're called. I'll get to them in a minute. But basically, you can build town centers anywhere, but they won't give you extra pop space unless they're built on settlements. But generally speaking, you will probably be playing with more units. A lot of the Tales of the Dragon content was purged and removed, and we just pretend that it never happened. I guess some maps were retained, but I never really played much of the Tale of the Dragon, and I don't think many other people did either. The Titan Age is removed, so you can research, Secrets of the Titans in the Mythic or Wonder Ages. I'll get to the Wonder Age in a minute. I guess some minor stuff was removed. But yeah, Titans and sort of the last age have been reworked a bit. So yeah, now it's based on the AoE 3 DE engine. I think the graphics look actually pretty nice overall. But yeah, basically some engine stuff. Yeah, Auto Scout and Villager Priority were introduced. Bleh. Don't like that, but whatever. There is a capture age like spectator function, which is actually pretty interesting. It's pretty buggy from the few times I used it, but it is there, and there's at least a lot of potential involved. You have a lot more stats available to you, which is quite interesting. There's a lot of stats in this game, and unlike AoE 2, which uses hard numbers, like I deal 10 attack, and it goes against your 2 armor, and that creates 8 attack. Everything is percentage based, so it's like, oh, you have 35% hack armor with my 10 attack, so it's, 6.5 attack or whatever. So it's a lot more complex than an AoE 2, so we'll have to see how exactly that pans out if the multiplayer really takes off, which I'll be interested about. Like I've said, I really enjoy AOM. It's my second favorite of the Age franchise, or in the Age franchise. Some scenario editor stuff. Game notifies. Okay, that's fine. And ray tracing. Everyone loves ray tracing. So resource drop site function can be selected when a nearby idle villager. Yeah, there's a lot of sort of quality of life, like, oh, send all villagers over here and all villagers over here. And the resource drop-off sites can all do that. Your TCs can do that, so that's just some auto functionality that's been added into the game. Heroic Age can either have an armory or a market, so you're basically taking it from AoE 2, where you need a blacksmith or a market, and the age up time was reduced from 130 to 90 seconds. As I recall, there was a lot of just classical age wins in original AOM, so I think they're trying to allow you to get to the heroic age a bit more easily. Also, markets used to just not be available until the third age at all, and now you can get that in the second age. So that's already a change, and you get to the third age a lot faster. And then to get to the mythic age, it requires a fortress type building, so a castle, basically. You have fortresses, Migdal strongholds, hill forts, and palaces. Those are the 4 fortress type buildings. Added the Wonder Age, where god powers are cheaper to cast. I'll get to that in a minute. Ranged units, yeah, you basically have AoE 2 accuracy for ranged units, so it's not like they're automatically targeting enemy units like perfectly if they're moving. And there's just ballistics that was added, I believe, in the Heroic Age, or Third Age. So they basically turned it into AoE 2 as far as the unit tracking goes. God powers are generally multi-use with cooldown. This is a huge change, and probably the most notable change in all of multiplayer. So if you use, like, Lightning Bolt from Zeus, you can use it again after a cooldown and for an increasing favor cost. And because there is no favor cap, I don't know how much it'll keep on increasing with the favor cost, but yeah, you can just keep on bolting away if you have the favor for it, and it does have that sort of built-in cooldown. I think it is like a different cooldown for each god power. I actually really like this change. God powers and myth units were not the biggest parts of the game. Usually they were only good like early on, and then you wanted to use the more population-efficient human soldiers later in the game. But this is Age of Mythology. We want to use our myth units when possible. Divine damage type was added. I was really confused in my campaign playthrough, but this is just units that ignore armor. Like, divine damage just does that damage regardless of any armor your opponent has. So it's like do-it-yourself Lei Chai or, Woot Steel Infantry in AoE 2. And yeah, some units have that specific attack. New maps, you have Elysium and Giza. We'll probably get to that once we get access to the game again. Just a few minor changes here. Notably, the pigs increase the fatten rate a lot from 0.175 to 0.3 food per second. It used to take a really, really long time for pigs to fatten properly. So now you'll be able to use them a lot faster. And I did notice that in multiplayer is faster to get your pigs in the action. So yeah, you have the village center, which is the town center, basically, except it doesn't give you extra pop space, and you can build those anywhere. Wonders. Now, look at this. 5,000 food, 5,000 wood, 5,000 gold, take 5,400 seconds to be built by one worker. Obviously, you'll be sending a lot more. And it essentially allows you to go to, like, the Wonder Age, where you can just sort of get your god powers on much faster cooldowns. I'm pretty sure we'll get back to that in a minute. Reduce the armor of all buildings. This basically makes ranged units a little bit better against buildings. Docks were reduced in cost. Although buildings cost different for the different factions. I think for Greeks and Atlanteans, it's just the base wood cost. For Egyptians, their buildings don't cost any wood. They cost, if anything, gold, but they also take a lot longer to build. And for the Norse, I believe it is 20% cheaper on wood cost for all buildings, but they also 20% less HP. So note that this value isn't necessarily accurate. Anyway, house, increasing the build limit from 10 to 16. So basically you get 160 population just with your houses, because houses give you 10 pop in AOM, and then you get, say, if you have 2 town centers, you'll get 200 population. And this is, I think, a nice change because, well, yeah, computers are obviously more powerful than in 2002 or whenever AOM came out. So you can you can render more units on the field at the same time. But a lot of the fights in AOM felt pretty small scale, especially with units costing like, 3, 4, 5 pop space. So this will generally allow you to play with more units, which I like. Yeah, market is now cheaper, or it's cheaper. And it can be made in the classical age. Little caravans cannot be made before the heroic age. Remember, you can trade with yourself in AOM. So you have, like, unlimited gold. They made the sentry towers a little bit better, more HP, and you can garrison villagers in them. A lot of maps have you spawn with sentry towers, just sort of, like, as mini outposts, as a way to, like, run away from early enemy attacks. So this will make it at least a little bit easier to protect villagers early on. As, like I said, in AOM, especially on, like, the more open maps, games tended to end really fast. Temples are now more expensive, so it's a little bit, a fair bit more difficult to get to the classical age super quickly. You can see 50 more wood and gold. Like I said, though, with Norse, it's going to be 20% cheaper. So, 120 wood, 150 gold. And for Egyptians, it's just going to be 150 gold, but it's going to take a long time to build. Town centers, you can actually build in any age, interestingly, but they have fewer hit points. I don't know of any strategies that have you go for a town center super early on, but we'll have to see how that develops. I'm interested to see how the next round of beta tests are going to go, because hopefully I'll be able to play more multiplayer games there. I only played like a few games with T-West in this version. Watchtowers are now stronger. You can garrison more units, but they deal less damage. So it's more of a defensive tool for your villagers and less of a go kill all the units nearby. All warships are available in the classical age. So this means that you can get the entire water triangle instantly. You can get your arrow ships, you get your ram ships or whatever they're called, and you get the siege ships. So the basic water triangle is that the arrow ships counter the ram ships counter the siege ships, and the siege ships counter the arrow ships and buildings. I'm not a big fan of this because what happens is like you were just constantly going around the water triangle on water maps, and it never makes sense to just like really commit to one type of ship, at least in my experience. It's like you just like make one, and then your opponent makes the counter, then you make the counter to that, then you make the counter to that, and that might need some more balancing over time. Also, I'm not the world's highest level player, and this is just my experience in some games with T-West, so we'll have to see how that goes. At least they're trying to balance water a bit more. Myth units and hero abilities can be activated at will. By default, it will be cast automatically, but you can target each, special unit, myth unit, or hero's ability when you think is like the most optimal time to do so, like the Cyclops throwing units, for example. All heroes now regenerate HP, and myth units from earlier ages gain hit points and other attributes on aging up, which means that myth units will just scale better throughout the late game. As usually, like the earlier age myth units were just really, really bad and inefficient as the game went on, so good changes there. And you can get your 2 naval units regardless of who you chose as your minor god. So I think you could only make Scylla's if you chose Dionysus for Greeks, and the Karkinos if you chose Hera. So now you can have a heroic age myth unit and an imperial age myth unit on the water at any age. Again, more changes to balance water play. But they did buff hero ships as well, I think. Again, I've only read through this once, and there was a lot to read. What they did here is they made workers actually take slightly longer to train. You can train more of them. They're weaker in terms of HP and in terms of attack. There is a tech to buff this back up in the heroic age, but they made it so villagers are actually easier to kill early on. And the villagers are much worse at fighting off stuff. And caravans, I guess, have a build limit of 80. So Titans can move over water, which would be pretty interesting to watch. Titans now have 28,000 HP instead of 7,000, but they have a lot less armor. So I'm not entirely sure why this was done. I guess maybe to make like high impact attacks more effective versus Titans. At least that'd be my guess. But yeah, it says effectively keeping the overall balance of the unit almost the same. So way more HP, way less armor. Transport ships also only have 1 pop space. That's good. Economic technologies up to the heroic age have been shifted to the next age when there is no associated mythic age upgrade. This one I read and I'm not too sure about. I think it means you can't get like eco upgrades in the dark age or archaic age. Someone will have to correct me on this one because I don't remember exactly what this means, and unfortunately I just don't have the game available to me to test, and no one does right now. Upgrading warships can just be done with heavy warships and championed warships, so you don't have to upgrade individual ships. It's just, your middle game warships and your late game warships. So kind of like how the War Galley upgrade functions in AoE 2. Ambassadors is only in the Mythic Age. I think this is the slinging tech. It removes the tribute penalty. And tax collectors is the one beforehand. So basically it made slinging more difficult, as is usually the case in AoE games where slinging is super overpowered. Crenellations, you could research this at towers, and it would make them really insane versus cavalry. Now it's only a little bit better versus cavalry, and it applies to all buildings. It no longer increases building accuracy because that is changed to ballistics, and it increases the tower range by 2. Remember, that range was nerfed with the regular towers. Enclosed deck just makes landing easier. Engineers was nerfed, so reduce the hack bonus damage from 50% to 25%, and reduce the bonus damage against walls from 100% to 1%. So Siege is actually really, really good as the game goes on in AOM, so this makes it a little less good. Heroic Fleet is important because it gives all ships bonus damage versus myth units, and otherwise you'd have a really hard time killing myth naval units, so that was rebalanced a little bit, costing gold. Hunting dogs was removed completely. In my opinion. It used to be just sort of an auto pickup in the early game, just like the hunting dogs in AoE 2, because you just got the fastest gathering food source faster. So now it's in the heroic age. It's only 10% faster gather rate from huntables, but it also increases the hit points and damage. Hit points and armor. So it's like Loom. It's Loom, but also a little bit faster hunters in mid-game, where there isn't much hunt left usually. So kind of weird how they changed it, but this is still going to be important to pick up as the game goes on. Yeah, husbandry was also changed a little bit. And, transport ships. Relics, there were a bunch of relic changes. They also added a bunch of new relics as well. You can look these up in time if you want. I mean, they just did some renaming stuff and some small changes here and there. You can look that up as you want. So, Greek-specific changes. Pestilence, this was Ares' god power. Basically what it did is you cast it on an area and no units could be produced from buildings, and the defensive buildings couldn't attack. So it was a really, really strong god power, because basically you would attack. If like you win a fight slightly, you cast the god power, your opponent can't make any units or defend themselves, and then you just snowball an early win. So now it only slows unit production. Especially this is going to be important because you can recast it over time. Town centers were just made cheaper across the board. It removed the food cost. Yeah, it removed the food cost. Also for... Oh yeah, because the town centers cost differently for the different civs. So yeah, Greeks don't have to pay food for a town center. Also, you can train heroes even if you have villagers in the queue or if you are researching the age up. So this is going to make getting those heroes out as Greeks a lot better, because Greeks can kind of struggle against myth units because they only have 4 heroes they can play with. 4 land heroes. I don't know why the heroes between the classical and heroic ages have been swapped. No idea, but that's what they did. All heroes automatically switch to range mode to attack flying units. So I guess all the Greek heroes can attack flying units now. Unique units to each major god can only be trained at the fortress and not the respective military buildings. I thought this was always the case, but maybe I'm misremembering it. So Achilles got some changes. The Argo got some changes. Everyone can get, I guess both Poseidon and Hades can get the Argo, which is the water hero. Bellerophon got some changes. Again, like there are a lot of like myth unit changes. The general theme here is myth units are stronger. Centaurs buffed. Colossi, population decrease, which is huge, 5 to 4, although they are more expensive. The Cyclopes, you can see much lower food cost and population cost. So the Gastrophetes is now the Gastropheteros. This one I thought was kind of interesting. They're cheaper, 10 wood and 10 gold cheaper. They're longer to train, and their whole thing was that they dealt crush damage as a ranged unit, so they were actually pretty good against buildings. Now they just deal pierce damage, and they have less armor. They have a super long range. Whoops. That's not what I meant to do! So it feels like they basically changed the Gastropheteros to be like a super longbowman, because they have a really long range. So these will probably be really good to spam in the late game, although not versus buildings. Heracles having some changes. The Hetyroi were basically Tarkans. But now they're kind of like the Cuirassiers from AoE 3. So they're really expensive on the gold cost. They take longer to train, but they deal area of effect damage. So they deal trample damage, which can obviously be very, very good in the late game. But they're not good against buildings anymore. Some Hippocon changes. They do more damage against archers, and they have a lot more pierce armor. I did notice this one. So 25 pierce to 40 pierce is pretty big, although they take longer to train. Hoplites, I guess less attack, more armor. Some Hydra changes. Jason, the Juggernaut. Kataskopos is the Scout. Medusa. Militia were actually nerfed for Poseidon, so 7 attack to 5 attack. These guys basically spawned whenever a building was destroyed. The Minotaur was actually changed from food to gold, interestingly. Myrmidons now deal divine damage, so they just ignore armor. Got the Nemean Lion. Got Odysseus. This is like their ram ship. And yeah, got some more changes here. All of these changes are mirroring across all of the Civ's villagers. Argive patronage for Hera. This lets you just periodically spawn a Myrmidon, so it's another tech added for her. I think she only had 2 techs in the original game. Chthonic Rites gives you HP regeneration for your Hydras and Scyllas, which is pretty awesome. And that's a naval tech. And again, like a lot of the existing myth techs have been altered. Lure for Poseidon now acts as a drop-off for food, which is really handy. It also spawns chickens. It used to be really bad. Now it's at least a bit better. Again, you can read these in detail if you like. I just don't want this video to run on too long. Yeah, so mostly buffs from my running through it. Anyway, the major god-specific changes. So Zeus doesn't generate favor as faster, but it's still faster. So 20% faster instead of 37.5% faster. There is no favor cap, so there's no point in increasing it. And myth units cost 1 less population, which is actually huge because most myth units already got a population decrease. So, for instance, the Minotaur is now only going to be 2 pop space, and Zeus can get Athena, I'm pretty sure. I don't think, I don't, oh man, I can't remember if you can get Hephaestus or Artemis as Zeus and alongside Hera. I think it's Hephaestus. So yeah, you get 3 pop space Colossi. So honestly, that feels like a crazy good bonus. Hoplites move faster, and infantry aren't as good against buildings for rushing them down in the early game, especially. Still, interesting Zeus changes for sure. Zeus, I think, was one of the better major gods back in the original AOM, and he should still be good now. Cavalry units and stables no longer have a reduced cost for Poseidon. Caravans, cavalry, and myth units are faster. Basically, this means caravans are they work faster. Also, 0.4 is like around a 10% speed increase for a regular unit. So actually, all of the Greek gods now have myth unit bonuses. Poseidon I don't think had a myth unit bonus before, and Hades is going to get one too. So now they're going to move a little bit faster. Markets are cheaper, so basically do-it-yourself Saracens, and the market exchange rate bonus increased from 10% to 15%. I'm not too sure exactly what this means. It says bonus increased, but market trade, you want it to be as low as possible, as close to a 0 to, just shifting all of your food to gold or wood or whatever. So someone can maybe let me know in the comments what exactly this means. Again, unfortunately, I'm no AOM expert. So yeah, Poseidon, cavalry, and market stuff. I don't know how good Poseidon's going to be. Hades, myth units get 20% HP. Hades definitely can get Colossi, so those are going to be some chunky Colossi. So that's definitely going to be a strong bonus. Building bonus change from 25% hit points and 20% attacks to just +2 range. So yeah, no longer do you get building HP, you get myth unit HP, and you get just extra range on your buildings. And no longer do you get extra attack on your range, you just get 1 extra range, which is probably better in a lot of cases. And then ballistics and burning pitch are researched instantly for their respective ages. I wish I remembered exactly what burning pitch did. Burning pitch. Probably remember it as soon as I see it. Oh, yeah. So this one, it basically makes archers better against buildings. Yeah, that's it. That's all it does. They don't become like anti-building, but they become solid against buildings, especially if you have a lot of archers. I now have remembered. So basically, Hades getting more archer bonuses, not as good with the defensive bonuses, but honestly, buildings kind of die very quickly in AOM. So these are probably going to be a bit of a buff all around, especially because, again, your myth units are stronger, your ranged units are probably going to be stronger, and you're going to get a very important tech in Castle Age, or Heroic Age, and then a pretty strong tech in Imp for free. Egyptians. Sobek is replacing Hathor for some reason. So Sobek is a crocodile god. Hathor was a fertility goddess, I believe. Also a new tech, Solar Bark, which is a dock tech, and it causes sea snakes to randomly spawn near the target with your aeroship. So, yeah, that's interesting. I'll have to see how that goes. I have no idea what the good, naval civs are in AOM. Nephthys, now, funeral rites is refunding 5 gold when a human soldier hero is killed. You have Nepti, which is going to increase the attack of your heroes against myth units. So I guess a little bit of a buff to Nephthys. I don't speak ancient Egyptians. Pastuchos are renamed from Pastuchos Ra to Pet Sobex. Pet Sobex? I'd like a Pet Sobek, please. I guess it makes sense, having the Pastuchos for Hathor, or for Sobek instead of Hathor, since he was a crocodile god. Locust swarms also attack livestock. That makes sense. The Citadel Center has unique civilization-specific models, which is neat. So Set gets some other animals, which is neat. Set's Pharaohs also can summon an elephant of Set. Poggers. Anubites are cheaper and weaker, at least cheaper on the pop cost. Hippo of Set is renamed to Hippopotamus of Set. Huge nerf right there. Hippo is way more fun sounding. Cabinets have been changed a little bit. Again, we'll have to see how that plays out. Looks like they're stronger and more expensive. You got the same exact villager changes for all the other civs. Got some more changes there. Mercenaries looks like they were nerfed as well. Minions were nerfed. These were from the mummies. Pastuchos were pop cost reduced. Rocks, I guess a little bit. Now it needs to land. Interesting. Son of Osiris now is just way bigger as a unit model. The Son of Osiris is huge now. So that's kind of funny. It also has a divine attack. Spearmen were actually nerfed, which I find kind of weird because Egyptian barracks units are generally not that good. Sphinx were changed from food to gold. some more changes there. War Elephants actually got a big damage buff, 14 to 20, and some more changes there. And like with the Greeks, a lot of changes to the unique myth tax. Sounds good. Yeah, again, you guys can look at these in more detail. I'll put the link in the description. Raw. Pharaoh bones change from 5% bonus resources when empowering drop-off sites to what you do is you just empower a monument. You build a monument in your eco, and then you empower the monument, and it's just a boost to all your nearby eco. So it's probably a buff overall. Well, it's worse in the early game, but it's probably better throughout like the mid-game. Camelry and Chariot Archers, rather, change from 22% hit points and movement speed to 20% damage. Also affects War Elephants, so basically all of your Migdal units have more attack instead of more hit points. But this should give Ra very, very good Chariot Archers, especially. Well, I guess they don't move as fast, but still, they're good. Ra was generally the late-game Egyptian god. Isis, monuments no longer have fewer hit points. Empowered monuments heal nearby units, which could be nice, and have a 40 range for the god power shield. Basically, Isis, you can't use god powers within a certain radius of the monuments, and they generate double the favor. Town centers no longer provide 3 maximum population. I guess that was just a little too good. And then upgrades now provide 0.33% hit points to human soldiers. So I guess Isis has cheaper techs. So now it's just you research all the techs in the game to get really strong human soldiers. Isis was like the flexible of the Egyptian gods, and that's probably still the case today. Set was definitely changed, so you get a Migdal stronghold cost reduction of 25%, but that also applies to barracks and the siege work, so your military buildings are essentially cheaper. The Chariot Archer train faster bonus and the Slinger change were now... the Slinger bonus was now changed to just Spearmen, Axemen, and Slingers moving faster. I don't really know if I like this because it just means... It makes your Chariot Archers a lot worse with Set, and one of the best strategies with Set was just like a fast Heroic Age into Chariot Archers. Monuments now reduce the cost of nearby barracks and Migdal strongholds, or units in those buildings by 5%. I have no idea if this is stacks. We'll have to check that out. I imagine it won't. And increase the food reduction of animals converted by a Set Priest. So Set actually got some pretty big changes. We'll have to see how good it is. Set was like the aggressive one of the Egyptian gods. And finally, well, I guess not finally, but mostly finally, Norse. Ox carts were changed so that they are constructed by villagers, dwarves and the gatherers. They have no pop space, and they can automatically be tasked to nearby resources, just like the mule carts in AoE 2. This is nice because ox carts used to be... You couldn't train an ox cart at the same time as a dwarf or a gatherer, so now you can just build those with your gatherers, and it's going to streamline your eco a lot more. The biggest change of all, the Jormund Elver is now the Jormund Elver. Huge change. They renamed, I think, Ulfsarks to Berserks. Don't know why. No idea. Lone Wanderer was like a buff to your infantry, like your Ulfsarks, right? Yeah, the movement speed of Ulfsarks increased. So now you have Hamask, which increases the movement speed and attack berserks for every missing... Oh, that's confusing. So you attack and move faster at lower hit points. Interesting. I have no idea how good that will be. Pig Sticker was... It just, I think, made you hunt faster. Oh, you dealt more damage against animals and hunted them faster. Now you have the Hammer of Thunder. Increases the attack of Hessiers. And generate double the favor. Okay, so that's a nice buff to your myth units. They also added the Great Hall, which is essentially a separate building that you just train your cavalry and hero units at. So the barracks is just for your Ulfsarks and throwing axemen, I think. And then the Great Hall is where you produce Godi, which are basically ranged Hessiers. They're another new hero unit that was added. Hessiers themselves. And then you produce your cav units. There's the Jarl and the raiding cavalry. And I think that means you only make Huskarls, Rams, and Ballistas at the Hill Fort now. Yeah, Godi Hero has a ranged attack. Oh, they added the Herdmen. I didn't see this one. Okay, so I guess it's a Spearman. It is basically a Spearman. It used to be Ulfsarks were your Spearman unit. Yeah, can only be trained at the Great Hall. Jarls no longer have any attack bonus versus myth units. So they're not as sort of one-size-fits-all as they used to be. Dwarves had the same villager nerf as all the other civs. Some changes to the Fenrir Wolf Brood, some changes to Frost Giants, Krakens, Longboats, Mountain Giants, the Needhog, And yeah, the Ulfsark was named to Berserks, and they can also be female. 9 attack, otherwise to 6 attack. Okay, so basically the Berserks are just kind of weak units in general, because they have just low attack in general. So you got some new tech. So Freya gets Sesrumnir, gets 15 hit points to all heroes. Heimdall gets Rigstula. I'm pronouncing all this exactly correctly. Buildings producing some research text. Oh, wow. And researching. Wow. That's like mini conscription. It also applies to your age ups. That's really good. Because Heimdall's in the classical age. Interesting. Njord gets Vikings. Literally Vikings. The Vikings' ability raiding cavalry, causing them to generate gold. Okay, so it turns them into AoE 2 Keshiks. There we go. Anyway, plenty more changes to the myth tax. Huskarl's Ram's Ballista and Jarl's having extra hit points is... Great Hall units have 10% hit points and generate 10% favor in battle. So it's a small buff there, but it's not as good as Thor's unique tech, where the heroes generate double favor. And it's just 10% hit points is definitely a lot worse. Although it does affect more units, I guess. It affects your Hessirs and your new hero unit. We'll have to see how that goes. It used to be, like, Norse, I think, were generally the weakest of the factions. So they got the most changes. So not really sure how this one will go. Also, non-farming food is 10% faster. I think that was the case previously. Regeneration bonus change to human units and heroes regenerate 0.7 HP per second, increasing... Okay, I have no idea how good this is, so it starts with, I guess, 0.7, they get 0.8, 0.9, and then 1 HP per second. 1 HP per second... units have a lot of HP in AOM, so it's not going to, I think, be that big of a deal. Wait, 1 HP per second. I mean, that's 60 HP a minute in the late game. It's not bad. It's, in fact, pretty good. Yeah, we'll have to see. Normally, Norse didn't want to make it to late game anyway. Dwarven Armory upgrades cheaper is now just the Dwarven Armory spawns a dwarf for each upgrade research, so I guess you can get those and boost your eco in the early game. For Loki, damaging enemy units can spawn myth units. So I guess it used to just be Hessirs. Now it's all human soldiers. A little bit, and Hessirs 50%. Interesting. Human soldiers and heroes inflict 25% bonus damage. That's going to be interesting. We'll have to see how exactly that pans out. Buildings are constructed faster, and transform gatherers and dwarves into berserks is cheaper. I don't know how good that's going to be. I mean, I guess it's good for defending early on, but you're losing that eco. Yeah, Norse, they got a lot of changes, so we'll have to see how exactly they play out. And I know this video is getting a little long, but like I said, there were a lot of changes. Atlanteans, we couldn't play as Atlanteans in the closed beta, so... Whoops. We'll have to see how this one plays out at all. So they now gain favor from oracles. Oracles used to just be scouts, so I guess you just station oracles around the map to gain favor. We'll have to see how quickly they can do that. Some changes here, just to the myth units, evidently. I don't know how we know these. Yep, that seems fine. There were some campaign changes for sure, which we will be going through in due course once we are able to play more of those scenarios. And that is going to be all of the changes that people have figured out so far that were from the closed beta. Now, of course, this is just like the first step of the closed beta. There will almost certainly be even more changes at the live version of the game, and hopefully we'll be able to get some more testing done when we have access to another beta. I think they're going to do another beta. We'll see. Anyway, hope you guys found this useful. Hope you enjoyed it, and thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.